Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new for 2023 Kershaw Launch 18. Now, I normally don't do this right at the beginning of the review, but I am going to today. This is a really good knife. Kershaw is just really nailing it in 2023, which is great because I was brought into this enthusiast knife world. Many of you remember, I don't know how many years ago, I think I became a hardcore knife enthusiast. I've loved knives my whole life, but like really interested in like all of the little details of pocket knives ever since I got my first Kershaw Blur almost 15 years ago. So as a diehard OG Kershaw fan, it just brings me so much joy to see Kershaw succeeding in such a monumental way in 2023. So listen, I'm going to talk about this knife for about 15, 16, 17 minutes. I'm going to say a bunch of really nice stuff and I'm going to point out all the details. And if you want to hear me talk about those details, I will. But at the end of this review, I'm going to recommend this knife because it is ridiculously good and the price is more than fair considering this is made in the United States. So I'm going to link this knife right down in the description. You can check it out along with the entire Kershaw Launch line, which is, those are some of the best, if not the best USA, the best pricing on a USA automatic knife in the world. I mean, the entire line is just phenomenal. So I'll link all that stuff, but yeah, this will be down there. It does help my channel and use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Kershaw for providing this knife for review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. This is on the smaller side, but it works, and I'll talk about why. Overall length of the Launch 18 is only coming in at 6.75 inches. I know it's not often that I like a knife that's really small like this, but again, we'll get to it. The blade length is coming in at about 2.85 inches. In some areas, we got to be careful about this. 3 inches is the line in some areas, so I want you guys to understand this is an automatic knife. But my grandpa says the definition of a switchblade, stop! Your grandpa's wrong. This is an automatic knife. This is a switchblade. It will be deemed as such. So please, just listen. I know people argue that, and I'm like, man, one day you're gonna you're gonna be in a situation where your poor understanding of the definition is gonna get you in trouble. So understand this is a switchblade by legal definition. 3 inches is the line in some areas, right? So this can potentially get you in a lot of trouble. The back end of this frame is 3 inches on the dot. So make sure that you know the laws in your local area. Here in Kansas, it's not a problem. But in a lot of other places, I know definitely outside the US, this is a huge problem. But a lot of places in the US, this is a problem. So just be aware of that. Cutting edge, 2.75 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales can be found down in the description under Original Goat. So up against or Original Goat and others, up against the Demco 8010 and the Demco, I say Demco 8010, the Cold Steel 8010, based on the original Demco 8010. Demco 8020.5. So you can see here we are smaller than both, actually. How about up against should we do the Spyderco PM2? I think so. Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Once again, smaller even than the Para 3, though let's be fair, the cutting edge is almost exactly the same, right? So it's got a pretty good amount of cutting edge there. Almost the same as the Spyderco Para 3. And truthfully, it's not all that much different than the PM2. And then last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilianer, in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? Actually, for a smaller auto, the action is very impressive. Push the button, hang on to it. Pretty powerful. That's going to shock quite a few people. Once again, just the other day, I handed an automatic knife off to a friend who really was not prepared for the power. It was about the same as this. Flew right out of his hand. So, it really is surprising exactly how much power is in these like real deal, automatic knives. And Kershaw really did put a lot of power into this little guy, considering it's really, to sum it up, without repeating myself over and over again, it is much more powerful than you would assume for such a small automatic knife. You push that button and it fires, and it feels good. Looks good, feels good. The action is just really good. I like it. Now, the problem with an automatic knife is really the safest way to put it back is to use two hands. You're pushing against the tension on that coil spring, right? You can do it one-handed, but that's a good way to throw it or accidentally cut yourself. So it's easier to just use two hands, right? But the action is very, very good. I'm very happy with that. Carry profile. This is a super duper EDC-friendly, EDC size or compact automatic knife. Carry profile, it's actually slightly thinner. Just slightly. I'm trying to get them lined up perfectly. You can see they're slightly thinner on Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Easy. This is going to... Where's the PM2? There it is. This will disappear in your pocket. Almost to the point where you might forget it's there. You know, it is small enough, so you got to check that. But this is very compact. You're wearing khakis, you're wearing, you know, slim fit, whatever. You're wearing skinny jeans. You're wearing spandex. Maybe not spandex. You're wearing leather pants. Your best leather pants. This actually will, it's very easy to carry. Also, largely thanks to the pocket clip, but we'll get to that. Hardware check. Let's get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. This is a T8. I'm almost certain that's what we're using for the pivot. And I am correct. That's a T8. Back here, I don't even have to check them. Those are T6 screws, but there's only two because they go all the way through to the frame on the other side and are completely hidden on this side, which is really nice. We've got a seam construction here, and this works. That means you have two screws and the pivot to take out because look at that. It's captive. Kershaw or Kai USA recognizes that the year is 2023, and the idea of a non-captive pivot is simply hilariously primitive. So thank you, Kershaw, for doing this. Thank you. Please catch up, every other company like that's not doing that. Like, please, for the love of God, catch up. It's 2023. Thank you very much. Okay. And two T6 screws for the pocket clip, which actually can be mounted on the other side. Thank you. Also, another thing that you don't see a lot in 2023, but because, you know, the folks at Kai USA have brains and know that left-handed people exist, they put the mounting position on the right side. Thank you, Kershaw, for just doing the basic, the simple quality of life things that we expect on our 2023 pocket knives. Thank you. Blade stock thickness. Let's go ahead and measure the spine here. Spine coming in. Actually, that's pretty thin. Okay, it's not as crazy as I thought. 119 thousandths. I think it's maybe just we got some heavy bevels there. They're making it look thinner than it is. Okay. That's fine. And then weight, finally. This is aluminum, a really nice looking, almost titanium aluminum, right? It's just kind of like a matte blasted gray. Same thing with the pivot color, which actually looks really good with the pivot and the firing button. And then we have a stone-washed CPM 154 blade, which is a CPM 154 is a fantastic steel. It is incredibly well-rounded, and it's one of my favorite steels of all time. Absolutely. So very happy with that. So the weight on this guy, I don't think we actually even need to fold it up. Well, I'm going to, so it all fits in frame there. But the weight on this guy is 2.29 ounces, making it fantastically well balanced. I think actually the balance of this knife is, yeah, right there, right where you're gonna have your index finger in the standard grip, which is great. So that's just really awesome. Blade to handle ratio is very good. The blade to weight ratio is very good. The overall appearance of it is very good. Check, check, check. Moving on. Meat and potatoes time. The reason I like this knife so much more than a lot of other tiny knives is they didn't get anything in the way on the handle. They didn't try to do anything fancy. I mean, it's an automatic knife, right? So there's no reason for anything to be there. But the lines here are accommodating for your hand. Even, you know, I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but I wear an XL glove, right? So a lot of you watching, I know just by my demographics, I'm not just guessing. I know that 98% of you are men. I know that because it says that in my YouTube demographics, right? So I would venture to guess, given that the vast majority of those men are between the ages of 24 and 45 years old, right? Not that your age has anything to do with your hand size necessarily, but I have a good grasp on like what type of people watch my content, right? A lot of you are very nearly the same age as me, and you probably had a lot of the same interests, right? And you see a lot of things that correlate in that territory. I don't want to get too scientific and judgy there because I'm probably wrong about a lot of things. But I would venture to guess that many people watching have a similar sized hand to mine, right? Not all of you, but a lot of you, right? Some of you have hands that are way bigger than mine, in which case you will not be comfortable on this knife. But if your hands are the same size or smaller than mine, then you you're going to be extremely comfortable on this little knife. Now, most of the time, you're not going to be gripping it like this, but even if you do, you can see here, I'm not sliding off the edge of it, which is honestly kind of impressive. They've got a little flat zone right here, so if you want to choke up a little bit, you got to be careful. If you want to choke up, they did give you a little room to do that there, which is nice. They give you 3 jimps, just enough to complement the index finger position, which I prefer. Now, most of the time, I'm going to be using it like this, or I'm going to be using it, sometimes I open packages like this, right, or like this. Most of the time, I'm not going to be hammer gripping it, but if you want to, you can do that. Now, your index finger, when you're choked up right about here, it's only when you're choked all the way up does your index finger land on the button. If you're right here, the natural position of your index finger is behind the button, so you should be good to go. So if you do want to use this to aggressively break down cardboard boxes for an hour at a time, you can. It's plenty fine. Just because it's small doesn't mean it's not going to be able to do that. Would I hammer with it? Would I pry with it? Would I use it as a screwdriver? No, because I'm a logical human being and I don't use my knives that way. Now, some people do, and I think those people should probably have a refresher course on what the purpose of a knife is, but without getting too insulting, I think we'll just progress. The blade is fully flat ground, which is not, well, okay, we got a little swedgerooski going on right there, but really it's mostly flat ground. We have a drop point blade, nice tip. Really just like the quintessential EDC blade that's nice and thin behind the edge, which CPM 154 will complement very well. CPM 154 is stainless. It's relatively tough. It is ridiculously easy to touch up, and it holds a decent edge. It's just a very good balance of things, but this is the powder version of it, meaning it has even particle distribution, and it can only make the composition, which is the ingot form is 154 cm. It just makes all of that just a little bit better. Increase of toughness, I think, and slight increase in edge retention over the ingot counterpart. But it's a good composition. It's always treated me well, and I think it works really well for automatic knives. So I have no complaints there. Kershaw Auto, and then we have Kai USA, and then the in-house, design logo right there. I think their in-house person or people are getting a little better. Sometimes we see in-house designs, and it's nice to see them be creative every now and then. I like that. I don't want to see the same thing over and over again, but sometimes it's like you put the back half of a 2001 Mercury Sable on the front half of like a Jeep Renegade, and it doesn't really go together. It's this all flows. This works. So I like this. I think that they're getting a little bit better and starting to figure out what people like. But it just looks handsome. It looks classy, and it's cool because it's an automatic knife. I like how they did this with the seam construction because it actually looks like a backspacer. Sometimes the seam construction looks a little bit cheap because it just comes up and there's no additional bevels or anything. It doesn't sink into this area back here. It just goes straight across and it comes together and it kind of looks a little The way that they've done this is they've like scooped this area out. It's like a fuller, and it comes together on each side, giving it the appearance of a backspacer, or just at the very least, just more interesting detail. But it doesn't, right? So there's no need for a separate backspacer piece. There's no need for standoffs. You just need 2 screws, and they could have gone all the way through to the other side, which is what we typically see. They didn't. They just went into part of the aluminum, and it's completely hidden on this side. So the presentation side of this knife looks very, very good, and I know a lot of people will really appreciate that. We're all very picky with our knives, right? Especially now in 2023, after you've watched 3,800 Metal Complex uploads. You're welcome. The pocket clip is very good. It's a little bit pointy right here, but not bad. And honestly, just given all of the trash clips that I have to suffer through as a knife reviewer, I am more than happy to accept this gift, this shining golden gift of clipliness. This is very good. I like it. Thank you, Kershaw, for a great clip. I will choke that little tiny bit down because realistically, it's so short. That's what I always say. Shorter clip is fine. It's plenty. The retention's fine. It's not going to fall out of your pants, right? Unless you're skydiving, you're grappling hooking, or you're parasailing, or you're doing all of that and you're parkour, right? Then, okay, then you have an occupation that requires a longer clip. But for everybody else, this clip will work. And the reason that little pokey end right there doesn't bother me as much is because the percentage of the handle that it occupies, in relationship to how much of your hand is on it, is very minimal. So it's fine. Left or right-handed carry. It's nice. In and out of the pocket, great. We got the little American flag right there, which is nice. Some Kershaws, if you're confused. I thought Kershaws were made in China. Some Kershaws are, and some are not. Kershaw has USA Kershaws, which is why you'll see sometimes this Kershaw is more expensive and this Kershaw is less expensive. No, it's not because they're trying to rip your face off. It's because the more expensive Kershaw most of the time is made in the United States, while the less expensive Kershaw is not only not made in the United States, but made with lesser materials, at least the blade steel, the majority of the time. So there you go. If you didn't know that, now you do. Lockup, completely and totally solid. I've never had a Kershaw that did not lock up the way that I wanted it to. Lots of tension there with the coil spring and the pivot, perfect centering, and just really snappy action for a little auto. This knife is $130, which if you compare that, yes, it is on the small side, but if you compare that with, other American knives, nowadays, especially automatic knives, man, that price is good. I have no complaints whatsoever with that price tag. I think this is fantastic. They have the Kershaw Launch series of knives is such a great example of variety. I love that. Now they've got a couple of things that look a little bit similar to other ones, but look, they're on number 18 now. They've done a great job. If you look at Launch 1 through Launch 18, they have done an excellent job of mixing it up not only in size, but blade shapes and finishes and blade materials. They got crazy wackadoo versions of these knives, and they've got real simplistic minimalist versions that kind of look like this, right? They got giant ones, they got little ones, they got green and blue and all these different... They're doing a good job with this, and this is nice. It's not the only small the only small Launch Series knife out there, but it's fine. It's cool. It looks good. And given the fact that we have the variety that I usually criticize, like a lot of times in lines of knives, or just looking at, like the lineup that any OEM has, I say, wow, we got a lot of the same stuff happening over and over and over again. But no, the Launch Series stuff with Kershaw has a lot of variety, and that's really good. So another one that's like this, that's somewhat similar to at least one of the other ones in the line, I think is perfectly welcome. But truthfully, the price tag on this is really the final cherry on top, and this knife is highly recommendable if you can legally carry an automatic knife of this size in your geographic location. Extremely recommendable knife. It's going to go on my most recommended knives playlist. Thanks again to Kershaw for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.